welcome back to another Paper Stack Snackable. That's what we're doing, right? Snackable today?
That's what we're doing. We're doing a snackable.
Paper snacks, here we go. Got a little something, little tidbits of information we're going to share to you to optimize your note investing and the use of our platform, Paper Stack.
Yep, very much so.
So where are we going?
Today we're talking about something Rick just slightly touched on in one of the previous ones, which is the indicative offer, the importance of it. Rick thought that this could deserve its own snackable, and so this is that own snackable. So we are going to be talking about the indicative offer, why it's important, how to make it, and
Sure. Yeah. So typically, we'll kind of talk a little bit about how the way things have always been done in the note industry. What would happen is a seller would send out a tape of assets, and most of the time you as the buyer would submit a bid, an indicative bid. And your bid is basically assuming that everything else checks out. Title's clean, the value's there, there's no glitches in the paperwork, all of those lines, all of those things. On PaperStack, how we have it is you have an offer, and we don't call it an indicative bid, it's submitting your offer, but you should be submitting an indicative bid. And what does that mean? So sometimes sellers don't want to, because we have an open platform, they don't want to take the note, the mortgage, the credit report, and just spread copies of that right up front.
Makes sense.
Why? Because, you might be a good actor, but there's bad actors out there, meaning somebody who might take that information and do something nefarious with it. Try to steal their identity or take the note and resell the note without the seller knowing. There's a lot of things that could happen. So when you're submitting bids on PaperStack, you should submit what's called an indicative bid. That is, you're submitting a bid that's assuming that the price or that the all the information that they're presenting to you, which would be the stuff in the note details, is accurate. You're assuming that there's not past due taxes. You're assuming that there are no glitches in title, there's no breaks in the chain, that the valuation is there. For me, whenever I submit my indicative bids, I do a little bit of homework up front. So what I'll do is I'll go and I'll drive the area digitally with like Google Earth or something like that. Make sure it's an area that I want. Mm-hmm. I'll do an armchair poll on value.
Shouldn't you always, just when you're doing the Google Earth, always check the right-hand corner for when that date was taken?
Absolutely, that's a great point. Mm-hmm. Look at the date on the picture, because it'll tell you last time the photo was taken. Mm-hmm. And don't just look at Google Earth. Go look at all the other ones out there. Maybe you look at Realtor.com. There might be a more up-to-date photo. Zillow. There's a lot of different ways to check on what the asset looks like. But before I submit my indicative bid, I'm usually focused on not necessarily what does the actual asset look like. I'm focused on what's the neighborhood, right? Because, rarely does it happen to where a really great street turns into a really horrible street at the course of 3 years. Mm-hmm. Usually there's a slow decline or whatever. So, and it's usually a really terrible street, doesn't turn into a really great street in a matter of 3 years. Now, it can happen in redevelopment zones, but for the most part, a leopard's not going to change its spots that quickly.
Yep.
Right? So I'm not necessarily looking at that exact asset. I'm looking for the neighborhood. Am I comfortable with that neighborhood? Mm-hmm. Then I'm getting comfortable with my value. Because those are the two things that I can do high level and that I'm going to spend some money on once I get an accepted bid and I start running my due diligence.
Makes sense.
Right? So once you do that, and maybe you want to go check your taxes, you can do that pretty quickly on going to the county tax site most of the time. But you want to have those kind of things ready and just understand you are submitting an indicative bid. And I would say that to the seller. If I'm buying an asset, I say, look, I'm submitting this bid. I'm good with this price as long as there's no issues with title. Everything's good on the paperwork, the assignments, the mortgages. You have the original note. And the value comes in, title report comes in.
Makes sense.
Because at that point, what you've done is you've come to an agreement on price, and you say, look, I'm comfortable with this as everything checks out, everything's good. And then you can start moving forward with the seller and saying, look, pass me on the collateral file, let me look at it digitally, review it, check it out, make sure it's good. And at that point, if that checks out, you've done your precursory look at taxes. At that point, I would move from, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this under contract and let the person know, hey, as long as the BPO and the title report come back clean, we'll go ahead and close it immediately, right? Put it under contract. As soon as you put it under contract, you can spend some money. Then that's when I spend money. At that point, it's like, look, I've got it locked up. I know it's my asset. I've done work that's only cost me minimal amounts of money because it's just been time, and it's not my time anymore. It's people we pay to do it, but people's time. It's costing time. Time is money. And at that point, I'm comfortable spending more money once it's under contract.
Smart.
So that's the indicative bid. You don't necessarily. Sometimes people are coming in saying, "Look, I need to see all the paperwork. I need to see the credit history. I need to see, how much money was put down. I need to see just all this other stuff." And they're like, "Well, I keep getting beat out." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, our sellers are getting multiple offers, right?
Yeah.
They're getting multiple offers at one time, and are you going to sell to the person who's giving you most headaches or least headaches? Least headaches, right?"
But you can't ask for that stuff once
You
you've
can
actually...
100%. And
Once you've already... you can ask for it up front, but it's best to ask for it once you've actually got contract signed.
You can
and they
have-
know you're going to spend some money on a BPO, O&E. They should understand, hey, that's fine. That's acceptable.
Right. Like, I'm not going to go spend money on a valuation and a title report if we haven't even agreed on a price.
Yeah.
Right? We need to agree on the price. And the only way you're going to get to agree on the price without doing an exorbitant amount of work is saying, look, this is an indicative bid. Assuming everything checks out, here's the price I'm at. If it doesn't check out, or if there's something wrong, then you can renegotiate price at that point. However, like, if the value's there and you tell the buyer or the seller will probably know, yes, the value's there, this is a good deal. What they might not know is about taxes. Or maybe they do know about taxes, and you say, look, this is my indicative bid pending everything checks out with are there any past due taxes or anything like that? If they know about the past due taxes, they should let you know then. If they don't know about them, they should say, I didn't know about those. It would come up later, but they wouldn't have known about it. So it's one of those things where, and I know this because it just happened to us, where there was somebody, they came in there and there was $1,600 in past due, there were liens, not taxes, but they were liens from unpaid water bills. I didn't know about them. It just was put on in December.
Oh.
And so, I'm like, look, she wanted to renegotiate. We'd already signed all the paperwork. It had been funded, and she decided late to do a title report. The title report came in, it had these liens. And I was like, look, I don't have room to move on these. And she was like, well, I wouldn't have bought this if I'd known those liens. It's like, well, I wouldn't have renegotiated. I wasn't sure I wanted to sell the asset anyways. So we came to an agreement. She's buying it as is. That means it's a great deal on the property, but it's just one of those things where sometimes the sellers are not going to know every single thing.
Especially if you have a portfolio over 100.
Or thousands, People, it's just not going to work. So indicative bid, go ahead, put your bid in, let the person know it's my indicative offer. It's assuming that everything on here checks out. So, the UPB, which is the unpaid principal balance, UPB. Somebody asked that, what's the UPB, unpaid principal balance? Some of these things, if you have questions like that, what's UPB, just Google what is the UPB and it'll pop up.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to answer those questions. So
There's a glossary too we actually have somewhere that if somebody asks, we can give it to them. We did that at one point.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, where we had the glossary of everything, and that's we've revamped it for something recently.
yeah, we'll find it. We'll give it out.
Yeah. Just ask. That's it. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. That's it for this Snackable. If you got a question of your own, something you want to hear about, we can definitely do another video and cover it. So yeah.
All right. See you later.
See you guys.